we're going to take some white gum paste. Just a small piece. And I'm going to shape that gum paste by rolling it in between the palm of my hands into like a candle. About, I would say, 3.5 inches in length. Really close. It's about that. Just going to round that side off. And you wanted to make sure that the tip of that candle is really, really pointy. So I'm just going to roll that in between my fingers, make sure that it's really nice and pointy. And then I will form that candle into a slight S shape, just a tiny little bit here, like really, really slight S. And the reason why I'm doing this, and I know you've seen a lot of birds of paradise, and this is the purple part that sticks out, and most of the time it's really just straight like this. But the reason why I am bending it slightly is so that it doesn't break. It kind of, I don't know the physics of it, I'm not really a physicist, but like if you bend that shape a little bit, it's not more than likely to break when you're moving your cake or when you're moving your gum-based flower. So I would bend that into a slight, just really slight curve. And then I will take that and flatten it slightly, just like so, with my fingers. I'll take my needle tool and run the side of it from the tip all the way to the end, just to get that stripe. I'll do the same thing on the other side. So you should probably do this before you bend that gum paste into a curve. There we go. Alrighty. So to be able for me to support this properly, instead of using a number 26 floral wire, I'm going to use a number 24. So it's slightly thicker, just because it's a heavier piece of gum paste as compared to just a petal. I'll take one end of that floral wire and bend that into an open hook like so. And I'm going to brush that a little bit with my gum glue, which recipe is on the recipe tab of this website. I'm going to wipe off the excess. I'm going to thread that through. Oops, there we go. Alright, and so after I'm done with this, I'm just going to go ahead and dry this on a piece of foam for at least 24 hours. So after that piece is dried, I'm going to take my Birds of Paradise cutters. And if you're using the Petal Crafts brand or set of cutters, you will have 4 cutters in the set and a veiner. So I'm going to take the one that is shaped like a long heart and the one that is like the smallest of the 4 cutters. And then I'm going to take a light purple gum paste. And then I'm going to dust my surface a little bit with cornstarch to make sure that my gum paste doesn't stick, because it's a little bit sticky. I'm going to roll that gum paste to an even thickness. I would say this is going to be thinner than the regular petal, so I'm going to say I'm got about 1/18 of an inch, really thin. All right, so I'm going to take that cutter and cut that shape. As you can see, I'm shaking it so that I get a clean cut. So I press my cutter and then I shake it a little bit. That way I get a clean cut all the time. Then I'll take my foam pad. And thin the edges. There's really no movement to these shapes, so I'm just really thinning out the edges of it, same as with this one. So as you can see, I just thin it out, but then the shape is just the same and it doesn't have any kind of movement to it. Then I'll take my needle tool and run a line from that dip on the heart all the way to the tip. Okay, all the way, run through the middle and then fold it in half. Then I'll take that part that's already been dried, the one that is shaped like an S. Now brush a little bit of gum glue on the center to the length of my heart shaped gum paste. I'll wipe off the excess so it's nice and tacky, but it's not slippery. Then I'll take that tip of my heart and I'll leave about 1/2 inch from the top, from the tip of this white shape that I made. There you go. So just let that, it's like slightly curved like this. So I would dry that like on its side, and if this side is too soft and it keeps falling off, I suggest that you take a piece of foam and then just stick it. There we go. Stick it right in the middle so it doesn't move and it doesn't fold like all the way. Then I'll take that small piece of gum paste and brush a little bit of glue just right on the base, right where that pointy base is. And I'll take that and put that right below that heart, and then open it, bend it backwards a little bit. Like so. So you just let it dry, like on its side like this, for about 24 hours again, and you're gonna do 2 to 3 of these per flower. So it depends on how many candles you wanted to make per flower. And this is how it's gonna look like once it's already dry. So you see how this is actually bent a little bit. Okay, so for the petal, I'm just gonna get like a really bright yellow gum paste. I used golden yellow gel color to color my gum paste, and I'm just gonna roll it to where the bottom part of my gum paste is thicker than the rest. That way I have enough space to insert my wire in. Then I'm going to take my veiner, my corn husk veiner that comes in the set. If you don't have the Petal Craft set, you can just use any kind of corn husk veiner that you may have laying around. Then I'll take this cutter, the one that is shaped like a long leaf, and cut that. Make sure that the base is right where the thick part of your gum paste is. That way you will have space to insert your wire in. Then I'll take a number 26 floral wire, brush that with a little bit of gum glue, about ½ inch in, because that's how much I need to insert the wire into my petal. So I'm holding it upside down with my forefinger and my thumb so that I can feel where that wire is going. Then I'm going to squeeze it to make sure that it doesn't come off when the gum base is dry. Then I will take it to my foam pad, and I'll use my ball tool to thin out the edges of this petal right here. Alright, again, there's not much movement to it. I'm just thinning it out, like so. Alrighty. And then you take your needle tool and then drag it. You see, I am starting, the tip of my needle tool is right on the foam, not where the tip of my gum paste is, because if I do that, I will tear that tip. So I'll start from the foam and drag that all the way to the middle and fold that. Then I'm just going to bend it like ever so slightly backwards. Alright, so when you're done doing this, you just need to take that on a piece of foam or styrofoam board, and then you just let it dry for about 24 hours. And you're probably going to need to make like 5 to 6 of these petals per flower, depending on how many of this white part that you make, because I usually put 2 of these per flower and 1 in the middle. So make about 5 or 6. If you're going to just use 2 of these, because I normally just use 2 of these per flower, then you're going to need to make 5. If you're going to make 3, then I guess you're going to need to have about 7 of these flowers, or of these petals. So after my petal and my candle is dry, I will take some yellow gum paste, or some yellow petal dusts. Well, actually not yellow, but orange. Take some orange petal dust, and I will dust the base of my candle with a little bit of orange, just a tiny little bit of orange right there, and also the tip, just a very, very tip. And I'm also going to use a little bit of buttercup yellow. And use that at the very, very tip. Of my candle. You can brush the base as well with a little bit of that. There we go. And then I will use the same orange petal dust. I'm actually using pomelo. So you can use any orange, you know, petal dust that you may have. And I'm just going to dust, as you can see, I still, even though, you know, in real life, Birds of Paradise is actually just plain orange. This part of the Bird of Paradise is just really plain orange, but still I'm trying to make the dusting darker on the edges of the petal and lighter towards the middle. That way I get that depth of color, like the shading, I would say, of the petal. So I would leave that middle part of this petal with a touch of yellow. I can still see the yellow gum paste that I originally used. So I will not be very squirmish about putting the purple right here because I really want it to be like deep, deep purple. Just make sure that you're going to be very careful as to touching that yellow part that we did earlier. Because if you get the purple right there, it actually tends to be a little bit muddy, so you don't want that. So just continue dusting. So I still left the bottom part and the tip part with just a hint of yellow, and then the rest would be deep, deep purple. So now we're ready to assemble. And I would take a number 18, this is a gauge 18 paper covered wire, and this is the thickest wire that I could find just because the base of the Birds of Paradise is heavy, so you need a really strong wire to support it. And for the tip, because this is really thick, I would take some floral tape. I'll stretch it. Take a number 26 floral wire, just maybe like an inch, 2 inch in length, and tape that right at the very, very tip. That way I have that point right there. And I would even take some of that floral wire and wrap it all the way to the top. Alrighty. I'm going to bend the wire like at a 45-degree angle, like so. So I will, because you know how Birds of Paradise, it actually grows at an angle. So I'll take that and bend that at a 45-degree angle. Then I'll take one of these petals and I'm putting the base of this petal right where the end of the green floral tape is. So I'll take half a width of the floral tape, secure it with my forefinger so I can wrap this petal with. Make sure it's nice and tight and secure. Then I'll move on to another petal, just right. And I'm bending my wire forward so that I can put it right where I need it to be. Like so. And then the first candle, the purple part, again I'm bending that wire forward. And the petals are going to move because the end of the wire is still right here, and it's not still not secure with the floral tape. So that's perfectly fine. Don't worry about it. It's not going to move later on. And I'm wrapping it to the base of the gum paste, to where the gum paste ends, so that none of those wires are going to be seen, like so. And then after you put the next petal, I'm just wrapping all exposed wires. Oops. If the floral tape breaks, that's okay. Just repeat the process that I did earlier, where you just secure the tip of it with your forefinger and just wrap it tight. So again, I'm just wrapping this next petal in. So now I have two petals, one candle, and then the next candle. Alrighty. And then the last two petals will actually be facing the opposite way. So it will be facing this way. Alright. And the last one would still be facing the opposite way, like so. So after you've done it, it would actually look like this. I'm going to take some white gum paste. You can use green if you'd like, but white's fine. I'm just conditioning it. And then I will shape that gum paste into a long teardrop. A long and big teardrop. There we go. Yep. So after I'm satisfied with the shape of my long teardrop, I would take my palette knife and basically make a slit right in the middle. Like so. Open that up like a sandwich. And take my gum glue. You can use a bigger brush than what I'm using right now, of course. That way the process is a lot faster. But I'm just brushing some gum glue on both sides of my sandwich. Then I'll take that flower and put that in between to hide that wire. I'm just going to push it so that my gum paste will stick to the wire, like so. And try to hide the base of those petals as well. This is a bit dry. So it doesn't need to be too perfect because we're still going to have to hide that anyways. With the biggest petal cutter that is in your set, that's what we're going to use. So make sure that the tip is actually tapered all the way. So you can tell where there's no glue, the gum paste is actually not going to stick. So just go ahead and brush some more glue where it's needed. Alright. So after it's done, you actually don't have to wait until this is dry. So I take some green gum paste and roll it to an even thinness or thickness, about 1/16 of an inch, kind of like how you would roll your petals. And you can even use a pasta machine. I normally use a pasta machine when I make my gum paste flowers because it just makes my life so much easier. Okay. So if you achieve the desired thickness of your gum paste, you take your biggest cutter and see how it measures on the teardrop that you've made. Sometimes it's actually longer. So you know that you will have to stretch this a little bit. So just go ahead and cut it. And this is a pretty big cutter, so I will just take off that excess gum paste instead of trying to shake it. So I'll take my petal pad, and I know I have to stretch this a little bit, so I'm just going to stretch it sideways and lengthwise. So I'm stretching it to the side and also on top with my ball tool. and decide which part would be at the on the outside. And I guess this will be my outside part. So I'll take that corn husk veiner and vein. Make sure that it's like parallel and not like this. Okay, it should be like the length of your leaf. So after you vein it, I'll take this and see if it's the length that I needed it to be. Pretty much. Just stretch it a little bit. So while you're stretching it, sometimes the veining gets erased, so just go ahead and vein it again. Just make sure that both sides actually can get covered. So I'm just going to take my gum glue and brush off like work one side at a time, because this is actually a big flower and you can't, you know, mind both sides at the same time. So I will work on one side, on this side, and then on the other side later on. There we go. And so after this is done, I'll just go to the other side. And if it tears, that's okay. We can always just patch it up later on. So I'm just gonna go ahead, and you can actually just work on the gum paste. This is kind of hard to do because the inside is still pretty damp, but once it's dry, it's actually very easy to just stretch out that gum paste and make it stick onto the base. So this is the one that I already covered and texturized, and I actually used white gum paste on here, and I trimmed off the excess so it looks like one cohesive. And the only reason why you actually wanted to have that outer layer is so that you can texturize it. We're going to get ready to dust it, and you can use, I'm using hollyhock green. You can use whatever kind of leaf green or leaf shade, leaf green shade that you may have. And I would just dust it all green. And also, this part of the flower is usually red. So I would take like a dark red shade of petal dust. Here I'm using autumn red, and just dust that with a little bit of red right there. And this is one of the reasons why I like to use white as well, so that I can get those vibrant colors, like so. And sometimes it even has like a touch of purple. Like right on the base. and then the rest is green. You can even use 2 shades of green if you need to. So here I'm using some forest green as well. So I'm using hollyhock. You can even use clover as well. That way you get that shade of like two shades of green. Alright. And then just to add a little bit of shimmer, I'm going to use a little bit of, just a tiny little bit of pearl dust, just so I get that shimmer. I'm not going to use edible lacquer, just because it has a different type of shine. Edible lacquer is a little bit too shiny, and that's not what I'm going for. I just wanted to have a little bit of a dewy look to it. And that's what you're going to do to the other side of it as well. But this is how it's going to look like. One of the things that we can do before you even start dusting the petal is to roll a little bit of green gum paste. And using the petal cutter, just cut like half width. You can even texturize it with a veiner. And thin the edges with a ball tool. This is about, about 2 inches from the tip to bottom. I'll brush it with a little bit of gum glue right at the base, about halfway. And I'll take my flower and wrap the base with it. Just going to take off the excess right there. So you get that green leaf that stands out, which all birds of paradise do have. This is how it's going to look like, the finished product.